Okay, wait, I lied. I'm back. There's one more cool thing I want to show you. Now, you don't have to generate what I'm about to show you, but I do think that you will appreciate seeing what I'm about to show you because it's kind of a neat trick that is built into RStudio. Uh, and it builds on the fact that what we just went through is a script. It's an R script, and all it contains are these comments that we used as well as the actual commands we wanted R to run. But everything that we generated got shot into the console, and it's just there, and you'd need to write down the values to be able to do anything with them or save them somehow. And that's fine, but it's not a particularly user-friendly way of seeing all the information that we generated. Similarly, we generated these plots, and if you wanted to use these, you could actually export them from here and use them in other places. Again, just to reiterate, you do not need to, and you should not include these histograms in your method section. These were just so that we could kind of get a sense of the sample, but you certainly could, when you run commands in R that generate plots, export images that you can save and then use in a manuscript later. But there is a great tool that pulls all these various things together so that you see, or you can see anyway, the language, the script that you used, as well as all the output, whether it's text or figures, all in one place. And that is by using what's in RStudio called R Markdown. Now, I happen to prepare an R Markdown that does all the commands that we just ran in the previous section of this video. And that R Markdown file, you might have actually noticed it. It's in the Files section of our Study 1 Participant Characteristics project here in RStudio Cloud. It's this file called 01_readdata_summarizedemographics.rmd instead of just .r. So .r is a version of the script that I had created originally before I started this recording. Here is the study1_participant characteristics.r file that I created on the fly during the video. And this file, this .rmd, is the one I want to draw your attention to now. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And I'm not going to say too much about the specifics of this document, except to say, as I said before, this is a lovely way to bring together code and text and images all in one place so that you can see things in sort of a more user-friendly way. And in this case, what I have done is included information about what it is that is depicted in this R Markdown. Got the title here, Study 1 Participant Characteristics. I'm the author. I created that on October 16th. This is the day I'm recording this. I've told it I want HTML output when I finally do something with this R Markdown. And then you'll notice that in this document we have shades of gray and then shades of white. Every time you see these gray chunks, and they really are called chunks, they're called code chunks, those gray chunks are where you can include commands that you want R to run. So for example, here in this first code chunk, you'll see that I'm using that code chunk to read in the data and create the data object, which we did before in the script, but now we're doing it within this code chunk. I also have a code chunk where I'm calling the library, the psych library that we used before. And then after those two code chunks, you'll see that there's a white area. This is just text. Most of this is default text that was created when I created the R Markdown file. And I did that by going to the File menu, clicking New File, and telling it instead of R script that I wanted an R Markdown. And when I did that, I had the opportunity to name it and to tell it the author and to tell it what kind of output I want, which is when I said I wanted HTML. So when I did that, it defaulted to providing this white text here, which basically just describes what an R Markdown file is. I adapted it a little bit to explain what the next code chunk will do, but the basic idea is that an R Markdown document, as it says here, is a simple formatting syntax for authoring HTML, PDF, and Microsoft Word documents. What will happen when I click the knit button, which you can see here, is a document will be generated. In fact, it's an HTML document because that's what I told it I want, that includes both content as well as the output of any embedded R code chunks within the document. So that's great, right? The beauty of this is that in the end, I'll have this HTML document that shows everything we've done. And that's because I told it to. I am telling it I want to see all these code chunks, and then I want to see the output of those code chunks all in one place. So yeah, I think the final thing I want to say before I actually knit this and show you what it does is that after that text that sort of just generally describes what the R Markdown is, I could change this text entirely and have it say other things, but I'm just going to leave it as it is. There is a code chunk called demographics, and this is where I've included all of the commands that we ran to figure out the information we needed about the participants in study 1, at least the subsample that I am focusing on. See, we've got the command that tells us how many people there are in the data object, the commands that generate the proportions of people of various races and ethnicities and gender identities, the command that gets the descriptives for age and for political orientation. All of that's in this one code chunk, and those commands will be run when I hit the knit button at the top. And then finally, I have a last code chunk, which includes the 2 frequency distributions that we generated too. And that code chunk comes after another bit of white text, which just is default text from the R Markdown when you create an R Markdown file explaining that you can embed plots in an R Markdown document. So I've only mildly edited this to indicate that here we're focused on the frequency distributions for participant age and political orientation. I also have a note in here about how you don't need to include these 2 plots in your empirical report. So that's just a reminder, you do not need to include these 2 plots in your empirical report, and you should not do so. But we'll see those plots in our HTML output when I finally knit this document. And you know what? Speaking of that, let's go ahead and knit this document. So yeah, it's all ready. I'm going to click knit and you'll see what happens. It's going to be magical. And there we are. So I'll just move this over so we can see a little better. What popped up is an HTML file that got opened in Google Chrome. You can see we have the title, my name, the authorship. We've got the code chunks. They're showing up here in gray. And then the output of those code chunks is shown in these sort of white rectangles. And so we've got a code chunk, or we've got the output showing us that we have 100 people in this subsample that I've been focusing on. We've got the table showing how many people were of each race and ethnicity, the proportions of people who were each race and ethnicity. Keeping on scrolling down, we've got the parallel tables for gender counts and proportions, and tables that show us the descriptive statistics for age and ideology. And finally, in this HTML document, we have the 2 frequency distribution plots embedded as well. And all of that is in one place. And you, too, can generate this R Markdown document for yourself and save it so that you have a record of all of the output that was generated when you ran the various R commands that you ran in the course of trying to figure out what the characteristics are of the participants in Study 1. So anyway, I think R Markdown is brilliant, and in fact, I use it to write actual APA manuscripts. That's going above and beyond what we're going to be doing in this class. But it's a really flexible tool, and I encourage you to check it out in case you are curious. The R Markdown script is available there for you to use, so play around with it. You can mess with it all you want. You can add stuff. You can add different kinds of plots. Maybe you want to look at, I don't know, a pie chart for gender or race and ethnicity. I don't know. The sky's the limit here. You can look at the correlation between age and political orientation. You can generate a scatter plot. You can, I don't know, go wild. But in any case, you can do all that in R code chunks and then reknit the document after you save it and see what it looks like in its HTML form. So all of that, of course, that I just said is optional, not required at all. If none of this is appealing to you, then don't do it. But if it is and you're curious, yeah, then I encourage you to play around. It's a pretty cool tool. All right, goodbye for real now.